We cover a mountain of tech here on GMBN but in a year of innovation, what's actually the hottest tech of the year so far?
Great question. Let's find out. Before we dive into the products, I feel like we need to discover some of the bigger trends from this year so far, because it is only so far, because, well, we've got another half of the year yet to go. Okay, what have we got first?
Derailleur gears have been around ever since Tullio dreamt them up. Or was it Velocio, aka Paul DeVivi? Either way, they've had a lockdown on gear shifting for almost a century, but are we starting to see the tide turn? I mean, Gates, the belt drive people, have been making belts for over a century, and brands like Zeroed have been running bikes with belts for not quite a century, although since 2011 though, and Pinion have been refining their gearbox systems for much longer than I imagined too.
Yeah, last year the Gates belted 100k purse prize, which is a prize if you win a elite DH, men's or women's race. It really sparked an explosion of innovation. So lots of teams have sort of bubbled up, and an equal number of prototype bikes have bubbled up as well. So we've got bikes from Intent, we've got bikes from Gamox, we've got bikes from, yes, Zeroed. And whilst many of these bikes are in a prototype format, it really feels like there's a real new drive forward for gearboxes. It feels, yeah, exciting.
I mean, rear mechs have grown and grown, and some designs and mounting systems are quite big now. And there's factors as why that might not be the best. So it's a big dangly bit that's low down on the bike, inches away from the terrain you're tracking across. And then there's the nerdier sprung versus unsprung mass ratio chat. And by moving the mass, the gears and cogs that shift into the frame, the suspension would just work better, wouldn't it?
Well, it should do. I mean, there was loads of chat before the sort of like start of this year race season that gearboxes could work for DH, but they've got drag, which, okay, technically they do have, and they're heavier, which is also true. And so a lot of this kind of chat combined that it's only going to work for DH, and that's the only kind of segment. And some of that is because racers don't pedal. That's what people said in the forums, which I think in theory is a wonderful logic, that racers can't pedal. But unfortunately, DH racers do pedal, and do pedal and often. And to really hammer home the point, Hattie Harnden smashed the first round of the EDR on a gearbox bike with a belt drive. And at the EDR that she won at, she had to really like pedal up, pedal down. It was like 4 huge days of like practice and racing. So it's a massive chunk of terrain that she had to cover, and cover faster than anyone else, which she did. So I really feel like gearboxes are, starting to make a big push. We've had a mantra for lots of bikes and as a trend for a long time, which is slacker and longer. And actually for me, this slacker thing of slacker head angles has been a really good thing, because it's made riding technical terrain and steeper tracks really, really fun, with very few sort of negatives, so they can boost confidence for loads of riders. So it's a really good thing. And actually this wave of better slacker bikes, I feel, has reached its last holdout, because there was still some resistance for some people about getting slacker head angles and getting sort of more modern geometry. But as an example of how far things have really come, Orbea's new Alma is a great example. So we're looking at a cross-country hardtail, which should be the last bastion of, no, steep is fine. But it is all of the things that you would imagine a cross-country hardtail is. So it's super light, it's carbon fibre, it's kind of got special features of the carbon fibre frame, so it's more compliant and comfortable. But rather than staying in the old mould of lots of cross-country hardtails of old, where it's steep, pointy, and there's a real handful on technical stuff, it's actually slack. Orbea have been really smart about this one. The bike has got a slack 67.5 degree head angle. I've ridden it. It is a hoot. So I think slack is definitely here to stay, but the radical, humongous leaps that we've seen before, where geometry changed year by sort of like a degree or 2 degrees, I think that is slowing down.
So sticking with the theme of geometry, we're now seeing brands getting super specific with ride feel, and how they're doing this is by speccing different frame sizes, different chainstay lengths and front triangles per size.
Like size-specific geometry.
Exactly.
Nice.
So different chainstay length for different sizes, as well as different front triangles. But when you think about it, how the centre of our mass is balanced between the front and rear wheels of the bike, it's easier to see how for a taller rider, say a longer rear end might help, and then conversely for a shorter rider, how a shorter rear centre can help.
Yeah.
So as an example, Propane on their Tyee has 2 different chainstay lengths across the 5 sizes to help balance that centre of gravity. I mean, it's great, I think, to see brands working to ensure ride experience is shared for all sizes of riders.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really good. I think on that trend, we've also seen, well, another trend that fits in, and that's one chassis and multiple bikes. And it's a trend I saw at Sea Otter. I know there's brands been doing it sort of beforehand, but it's a trend that, well, clearly is spreading. What we're talking about here is when a bike brand designs 2 separate bikes, but the front end is the same across the 2 models. In some cases, in certain suspension designs, it's the back end is the same as well.
Yeah.
But the way that they're designing the suspension links and special linkages means that you've got 2 bikes. I think it's really fun to see how, for a consumer, you've got the options of then going, oh, okay, I can get to an entry point of the one bike, and if my riding style and where I live changes, I could almost just get different shock, different links. And then also for the brand, they're not having to invest in zillion different models. So I think it's quite fun.
And another strong trend we're seeing is away from the cable tourism we've seen in previous years. So many brands are now offering sort of multiple cable routing options. So if you like the clean look of routing it via your headset, yeah, cool, you can still do that, but you prefer the slightly more mechanic friendly, easier to work on version that sort of runs externally of the headset but then into your down tube, you can. I think it's great to have options, and it's great to see that brands are listening to, you guys like home mechanics, that you weren't happy about having to pull all these little proprietary parts out. But from one trend that's still on its way to being fully embraced to one that is sort of even more widely embraced is internal storage.
Yes.
Yeah. So down tubes are growing wider and wider, but they are still hollow.
It's still a tube, yeah.
They're not solid, so why not put a doorway in them for putting things in? So within frame storages, that's what we've got. And personally, I'm a massive fan.
If you've subscribed to the channel already, you probably know that we do a weekly show covering lots of the freshest tech. So some of this might not be new news, but we do new news each week. So if you've not subscribed, do us a real favour and just click the subscribe button. Really helps us make, interesting content just like this. Okay, the Basque brand, Orbea, they've got a new flagship enduro bike. So it's the Rayon or Rallon, as we say here. And this year it kind of changed and then also didn't change. So the Rallon is still the flagship enduro bike.
Yep.
But also now the Rallon is actually the flagship DH bike.
Well, hang on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, 2 bikes in one. So it's one platform that they've been able to manage and manipulate to do these 2 different things. And we've got different suspension travel by around 30mm. We've got different geometry. We've got very different setups. Plus, they've got an adjustable weight system. So that's where you can really easily play with the balance between your sprung and unsprung mass, which, again, it is pretty nerdy. But to get the most out of a top-tier race bike, be that enduro or downhill, it's something that loads of racers are doing. And I think at World Cups they've been doing it for quite a while. Might seem, like the new headline figure, but racers were doing it a while ago too. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is the first production bike that offers so much adjustment. It offers these, bolt-on weights and the suspension adjustment. It's super impressive.
All right, so this was a much subtler than the big bombastic enduro and DH bomber, but Propane have quietly been updating all their models this year. So not quite the multi-degree radical shifts we've seen in the past, but still small improvements that have sort of been eked out to make your ride experience better.
Which is cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
Better bike to ride, yeah.
So now it's got 130mm of rear wheel travel, and that's paired with 140mm fork up front. So the geometry is very close to the outgoing model, and now got to include the Hugene as an awesome example of a modern trail bike. So the Pro 10 suspension platform Propane use pedals phenomenally well. They can handle far burlier terrain than you think, but it's still a trail bike. It's for pedaling up, playing on the trail, and they don't need to be big plows to have fun. There are enduro bikes for that, but this just does so much so well.
So from the mild, from the sort of minimal changes, we're going to go to something raw, something big, bombastic again, huge, the Canyon Sender DH. But it isn't just about monster travel. It's got that as well, but there's loads more. It's how does a brand sort of move one of its benchmark bikes, its winning bikes already, to make it well, an improvement and still a winning bike. Canyon started with a full blank sheet when they started redesigning the Sender. And, well, actually, I should probably stop there because we've done a whole video all about the origin story of how they went from a race-winning bike to, well, actually now a race-winning bike again. And it's a really fascinating story. So if you've not watched that, you should. But the headlines here is that we've got a long, low bike for the very rowdiest terrain. There's a lot of tech in the frame as well. We've got a full carbon frame, which is still unusual for a DH bike. It's got a special impact-resistant layup as well. We've got 200mm of travel front and rear. It's MX wheel size only, so 29 up front and then 650B or 275 on the back. And there's adjustment. So there's reach adjustment, there's head angle adjustment. I think the bottom bracket height is adjustable as well. And then it's got some interesting little sort of tweaks. So it's got a 148 rear end, so that's the hub spacing, rather than the old one, which had 157. And it's still kind of narrower than the old DH standard, which was 150. Yeah, there's a lot of frame standards. But the idea is that it makes it narrower at the back end, and that helps with heel clearance and actual rideability. Fabian Barrel has been at the sort of core of the development of this bike, and it's interesting because he is very, very fast and very technical. So he's not just sort of ploughing through stuff, he really thinks about stuff. The bike was a winner under Troy Brosnan, which is impressive, but it's also a winner as a production bike under Marin Cabarrou. Impressive techie bike. So the big headlines was that after 7 years, Shimano updated its top tier racing group set, XTR. And that was kind of written large, that it's a new group set, it's wireless, it was optimised for XC racing and enduro, and there was new brakes as well, so there's like super light ones and the ones that can stop you really, really fast, even if you're big and burly, like Richie Rude. And as with many sort of top level group sets, there was lots of space age tech and superlatives about performance metrics. And then actually a couple of weeks later, Shimano released new Dior XT and new Dior. And I feel like in that sort of launch, I feel we're guilty of it too, is that the Dior XT in this new wireless format stole a lot of coverage. When actually we probably should be looking at the Dior group set, because it offers almost all the advantages of, well, the top flight XTR one, where we've got wireless shifting, we've got this new rear mech that can do wonderful, fast, efficient shifting, but at a much lower price point. It is really interesting. So for me, all the new wireless Shimano group sets have been really exciting. They're all plug and play as well with the current 12-speed stuff. So that's another thing that I think that was sort of missed in the news and hype. So you don't have to get an all-new group set. You could just get the shifter and the rear mech. And with Dior, that means that, well, you can go wild.
More recently, well, we saw it first as a prototype at Sea Otter, where Fox were very, very tight-lipped about the fork. All we got to see was in its prototype, but we saw it race there too. So what I'm talking about is the Fox Podium fork. And I mean, it looked wild. The big burly crown, the low-key graphics, and yes, that upside-down format. So inverted forks, an odd name, but within mountain biking, it works as so many forks are the other way around. I mean, to create this fork, Fox have gone big with 47mm diameter upper tubes, whilst the lower sliders are 36mm. I mean, the cleverness continues with the damper and spring units built in to cope with that good chassis flex too. So special rubber seals that allow for small amounts of flex to reduce the binding of the parts as they slide. Yeah, I mean, we're yet to ride it, but from those that have and that ride it hard enough on burly trails, it's said to be a new benchmark in performance, despite the gain in weight and reduction in stiffness.
The big seismic shift from SRAM is that it's moving away from dot fluid to mineral fluid.
Oof.
I know, it's
Big
huge,
change.
yeah. SRAM had been sort of very committed to dot fluid up until last year when they introduced the Mavens, which were a DH race-only brake. The reasoning behind this switch was because it's all about performance and high performance. Because previously they'd said, oh no, dot's really good because it lasts for ages and you don't have to bleed it as much and it's got a higher bleeding point. But then they'd got these new race-specific brakes. It was quite confusing. But now, yeah, that's all sort of changed because now all the brakes, I think bar one, are all with mineral fluid. So it is huge. I think it's really good news too because whilst dot wasn't kind on paint, wasn't kind on hands, kind of hard on to get rid of in terms of it's not great on the planet, so you have to make sure that you dispose of it carefully. I think the other thing, because lots of the ways of working with it you can kind of mitigate around if you're in a workshop or if you're working from home, but I think the big news is that the new mineral oils versus dot, they're not going to absorb moisture.
No.
And that was a big problem for me with DOT, is because we don't use the volume that automotive uses. We've got these little pots. Over time, they're absorbing moisture. So you're like, yeah, I'm going to bleed my brakes.
Nope.
Yeah, you have to have fresh fluid. So I think this could be really good. Really good move. Thank you, SRAM.
And you saw something quite cool at Sea Otter earlier in the year, didn't you?
So it's a new valve. And I can already hear some of you starting to grumble. These are the new turbo flow valves.
Turbo?
Yeah. Now, I can definitely hear you moaning now. It's like, great, another air valve standard, because that's perfect. We have to get another pump head standard. That's a faff. But these don't need that. No. No. These will work with your normal pump head. So pretty much all the pumps that you have at home will work. Then it gets better. You'll be like, well, yeah, but I've got to replace a valve in a wheel, and that's going to be a faff. No. You can just replace the head.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But even just replacing that means that you've got loads more airflow. I mean, loads more, to the point where Topeak say that you've got 300% more efficiency in airflow with these valves.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
No, and I've kind of like done a dummy test where you pump a tyre up with a normal valve and then you pump it up with these turbo flows. And the amount of airflow, it's noticeable at the pump.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really good. And also I'm a big fan of tubeless. I know that some people aren't yet converted to the ways of tubeless. They can be very good. And I think that's where this technology is even better, is because the valve head is removable. So it means that you can chuck loads of sealant in through the valve. But if you're not doing that, the extra airflow really helps as well.
Yeah.
And they're easier to clean. So
nice.
It's like less faff to pump them up. It's less faff to put sealant in. I'm just really impressed. I know it's something very small, but I just think they're great. Yeah. They're really good. So, winner.
I think we might be forgetting something here.
No, but I think we've covered all of it, surely.
Well, we have, but I think there is the potential for what will quite literally be a big trend.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to have to mention it.
Yeah, okay.
And I'd like to mention it. 32ers.
Yeah, no, valid. Yeah.
So it's been a big talking point from the biggest shows in mountain biking recently. No, it's not an electric bike. But yeah, 32-inch wheels. So I'll say this again, 32-inch wheel.
It's huge.
Yeah. So it's not going to be like 29ers when they came out. It's not all sort of going... Those 29ers won't be going away, nor will this size work for everyone, at least immediately. But for XC racers, or perhaps taller riders, it'll just be an extra size that's available and potentially offer up some real performance benefits. So the big wheels should just like plough over rough stuff and make that even smoother. Perhaps you'd even get away with less suspension. So for a lighter, simpler bike, perhaps like the prototype from Faction Bicycles on the Maxxis booth, these can be made to work down to sort of medium-sized frames. So it's not all happened yet, but we feel we should have this on our radar. I think this is all coming soon.
Yeah, agreed. I think it is something that is... I think your point is fantastic in the fact that it is that thing of like 29s came in and it did sort of like design out lots of people's bikes very quickly. But I'm very confident that's not going to happen with 32 because they can't fit everybody and they're not for everybody. So I think for taller riders and people who want to go really far or really fast on sort of cross-country courses, that's where it's going to be. So I think it's good, an extra wheel size. I think it's a good thing. Okay, right. For me, I think that was a good synopsis of what we've covered in terms of what trends we've seen so far. But obviously, let us know in the comments down below the other trends that we've missed. I feel really excited by the fact that mountain biking is always moving forward. It's not like road where it's essentially trapped by the UCI, where they're stuck to certain tube shapes and they're not allowed to actually innovate. Mountain biking's got this wonderful free range where we can kind of do anything. And I think more and more brands are realising that if they want to get their bike to people and they want to make a better bike, it's all about improving the ride experience. I think that's a really good thing.
And I mean, even from the small part, the quite literal small cogs in the machine to make something bigger and better. It's all those things. So yes, maybe not quite as extreme as jumping to a gearbox, but it's all these little things. So the turbo valves, just little things that make your life easier will just improve your ride experience.
What are you most keen to try? Are you keen to try the big wheels?
Oh yeah, I am, for sure. Yeah.
Belt drive?
Yep.
Okay, right. Gearboxes?
Yes.
Yeah, I really want to try belt drive gearbox. I want to see what it's like.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, that's our decisions, that's our thoughts on what the biggest trends are so far, but let us know in the comments down below what yours are and which ones you're most keen to try first. What should we look at first? Should we look at gearboxes in more detail, or should we go and try and find a 32er to go and ride? Let us know in the comments down below.